Our hen house is a squawking house. Our hen house is their hen house. Our hen house, ooh, it's a funky fresh house. Our hen house is your hen house.
Hello and welcome to Our Hen House, a place to find our way to change the world for animals. Joining us today will be Jenny Brown, the co-founder of Woodstock Farm Animal Sanctuary and author of The Lucky Ones, My Passionate Fight for Farm Animals. Jenny is an extraordinary person with an extraordinary story to tell, and she'll also be giving us the skinny about some truly outstanding individuals who reside at Woodstock Farm Animal Sanctuary.
And we are particularly pleased that along with Jenny, we'll be joined by Gretchen Primack, who is using her talent as a poet to speak up for animals. Gretchen will share some of the poetry in her collection, Kind, and will also share some dishes that will prove beyond any shadow of a doubt that we don't need dairy to make food creamy.
Oh my God.
I can't wait.
They keep bringing us food, and we have a lot to report.
That's because we tell them they can't come unless they bring us food.
There's that. We have things
that.
to tell you too, so hold on to your tofu and please pull up some hay. Let's get squawking. Hello, Marianne. It seems like summer has finally come into action.
I think it's firmly here.
Do I look
June
summery?
is well underway and it's hot out, and you look very summery.
Good, because
I actually have sleeveless thing on.
Is this mine, by the way?
No, it is not.
This is mine.
It is not.
You got this.
You gave it to me.
You got this from my closet, Marianne. Come on,
No,
let's be honest.
it was in my closet.
That's not even remotely true, but...
Can we get back to summer?
Back to summer and the fact that you're stealing my clothing. We had our first barbecue because we inherited this barbecue from the people who lived in our apartment first, and we have this small little backyard, and...
It's a whole new world. I mean, I barbecued when I was a kid.
Yeah, well,
I didn't barbecue. Other people barbecued for me.
The power of vegetable barbecuing is really unsurpassed.
People think that you can't barbecue unless you barbecue meat, but that's just
or
crazy
even
talk.
I think some people realize you could barbecue vegan
corn,
meat, but aside from the vegan
corn
meat,
and potatoes, we used to do a lot of that when I was a
but
kid.
we did all vegetables.
Yeah,
and
it was amazing.
And
well, we didn't do it. People had to come over and show us how to do it.
They had to totally do it for us because we had no idea what to do.
Which is kind of perfect when you think about it.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
We have a backyard. Come on over, barbecue for us.
Bring us food.
Feed us.
Prepare it. And
we will
we'll
have
eat
fun. We'll eat it.
Was that marinated tofu and vegetables, and the vegetables got all caramelized like the onions? It was really, really good.
And speaking of summer and our backyard, we had to buy a weed whacker. Now, there was a thing I never thought I would do in my life.
I didn't even know what it was.
I know. We just stood there.
Sounds dirty.
Yeah, it does. It really does. But I just stood there staring at the backyard like, honey, it keeps growing. I can't find the dog. I know she's in there.
It does just keep growing.
Yeah. I had scissors. I was ready to.
People do have like these huge yards. We have like.
Yeah, I know. But it's
Well, now
lovely.
we bought the weed whacker, and at some point we're actually going to cut the grass.
We'll invite our friends over to come and barbecue and whack our weeds. Moving on.
What a great invitation.
We just got back from Niagara.
Yes.
Canada.
We actually haven't been in Brooklyn. We've been in Canada.
We've been in Canada. Oh, Canada. And we were speaking at the Niagara Veg Fest there and a few other events.
It was a great event.
Amazing event. We spoke there 2 years ago. And I think the fact that it's growing so wildly, kind of like the grass and the weeds in our backyard, is indicative of the fact that veganism is just growing by leaps and bounds.
It's just huge.
It's reaching the mainstream. And we're currently working on a video about the Niagara Veg Fest. So stay tuned for that.
We're not working on it. Other people are working
What if they don't know what a Veg Fest is, darling?
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's such an important part of our lives. I'm sure there are many people who have never been to a Veg Fest, but they're all over the place all of a sudden.
Huge one here.
The Veg Fest season has totally taken off, and every week I hear of different ones around the country, many of which we've actually spoken
Well,
about.
actually, but before we talk about those, they are just huge festivals that attract thousands and thousands of people, and it's not only bringing to light the amazing vegan variety of foods that are popping up left and right, but it has animal issues woven in. And
brilliant speakers, brilliant, dynamic, charming speakers.
Gorgeous speakers.
Gorgeous speakers.
Prerequisite.
And brilliant and dynamic.
But actually, a few years ago, we made this video called Veg Fest Mashup, and if you go on like YouTube and you type it in, it'll come up. But let's show a part of it. This one highlights, we're just going to show the beginning part, so it highlights the New York City one, which is enormous.
Yeah.
But let's take a look at this video.
Once warmer weather rolls around, veg fests run rampant, bringing plant-based grub, delicious fun, and much-needed awareness to food hounds everywhere. In cities from Chicago to Asheville, Seattle to D.C., these celebrations attract people from all walks, including vegans, vegetarians, and the veg curious. Join our Hen House and Veg News TV as we visit an assortment of veg fests throughout the country to see what goodies they have in store.
This is an amazing event. There's a line around the block that said it's 4-hour wait.
Oh my God! I'm Jasmine Singer from OurHenHouse.org, and I'm here today at the very first annual New York City Vegetarian Food Festival. There are over 70 vendors here, tons of speakers, lots of vegan food everywhere. It's going to be an amazing event.
We have a full day of speakers, music, dance performances, yoga, food demonstrations. It's endless. We've got it all.
Hello, I'm hungry.
We're the first soy milk to be certified non-GMO, which we're very proud of. We're organic, and then all of our soybeans are grown here in the U.S.
Are you actually naturally sweet?
Through and through.
So would you say that vegans have finally conquered cheese?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We have. I'm with Mercy for Animals, of course, and we're setting up to tell people about cruelty-free eating, and just really excited about all the great speakers and vendors and, like I said, food.
We actually bought Food Swings a couple years ago, and we thought it was a brilliant idea, and we took the whole take on the whole fast food idea, which I think is amazing, you know. So we've been doing like vegan milkshakes and burgers and a lot of fried stuff that, you know, vegetarians and vegans usually can't get a taste of.
So this is it's a Vietnamese sandwich called a banh mi, which is traditionally made with pate. Ours, of course, is made with foie gras.
Faux like fake, faux.
Faux, like foie gras.
There's over 120 restaurants, vegan and vegetarian restaurants listed just in this book alone.
I'd like to thank all of the broccoli and carrots for making this day possible.
Aww, brings back memories.
You're such a ham.
A soy ham. Soy-based ham.
You have lost a little weight since then.
I have, yeah.
We can't lie and say that we took that last week.
No, the people in the control room over there were like, is that your sister? But they were being honest.
Funny.
It was like,
funny.
yes, that was my sister. She's delightful. She's got a
She
great
is.
personality. Yeah, well, okay, we'll talk
She
about...
would be if you had a sister. You were wearing one of my dresses in that video, I just want to say.
That is not accurate.
It's totally true.
Oh my God.
Totally
this
true.
is a lie. You can't lie on TV. Nobody lies on TV. Anyway, so that was there's some other great veg fests that we feature in that too. And it's just been amazing. The Niagara Veg Fest was exciting. I know we're going to Chicago soon to do their amazing event there.
Vegan Mania.
Chicago Vegan Mania. And
they're all over the country. I mean, they're really, every year I see more and more of them.
Yeah.
It's fun.
But
they're a lot of fun.
Let's back up and talk about our trip up to Niagara, because we took Amtrak, which was, 9.5 hours.
I love trains.
NBD.
9.5 hours is not too long on a train
and
for me.
While we were on Amtrak, got a little hungry.
Yeah.
We did have a lot of food with us because at Penn Station we had our scarcity issues manifest.
Yeah.
So we bought like
we have mutual
every
scarcity issues.
food that they had.
Well, 9.5 hours, I feel like,
8 meals.
You can't just get off and buy something.
No, geez.
Yeah.
what if the
No, we had
train
enough-
stalls?
we had
would
enough
die. We
food
would
for a
wither
weekend.
and die. So on Amtrak, they had a vegan burger. I know this because it was called Vegan Burger.
Vegan burger.
Not a veggie burger. A vegan
They had
burger.
like just a few things to eat, and one of them was a vegan
burger. It wasn't.
And you got the last one because they were sold out.
Yeah, that was exciting.
And then they had the magazine.
And then the magazine. It was
the magazine was kind of just completely
Arrive
amazing.
magazine. We've spoken about this before, but it's the front cover of the magazine that goes on everybody who takes Amtrak. All of them get it in
That's
their...
like millions of people.
Millions of people, and it's all about going vegan. It's about
and
going
it's totally
vegan.
positive.
It's
and about celebrities who have gone vegan
or have
and
embraced
trying
it.
out like going veg and for
Unbelievable.
a period of time, and it's just and then moving on to vegan. It's just unbelievable.
And then we got to Niagara and we saw the falls briefly,
Yes.
and we saw Lake Ontario.
You know, we almost didn't see the falls. It was a close thing, but they are incredibly beautiful.
Yeah, well, that's the cliche
But
statement of the century.
The whole area is, you know, you think of it just being the falls, but it's really just a whole beautiful area.
Yeah. But while
there's the Lake Ontario, we took some beautiful
John
photographs.
Schlim took these photos.
Yeah.
And he was like, the lighting is amazing.
It was.
It was like silhouette-y.
But the Great Lakes are beautiful, though we were told not to swim in them.
No.
Not that we were going to.
Yeah, no, it wasn't going to happen.
But they're beautiful.
One thing that wasn't so beautiful was during our trip up, we passed a bunch of dairy cows because, you know, it's New York State.
The trip is totally through all of New York State. And New York, of course, is a huge dairy state.
Yeah, and it made me think about, of course, the dark side of dairy, which is all of it.
Of course it does.
And
I mean, but when you see the cows, they just look happy and cute, and they're in the field and they're munching their grass. And
I was actually driving with my mother not too long ago, and she's vegan and a wonderful animal advocate, and we just, you know, we forget about what's actually going on, because when we were driving around, she said, "Oh, look at the cows!" Oh, and people say that to their kids. Kids, look at the cows! Look outside the window. And if we actually thought about it for like 3 seconds, we would realize what actually was going on.
Well, I don't think it's just a thinking process. I mean, you need some information, and the information we're given is all wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, we're basically told that cows will die if we don't milk them, that we're doing them this favor by milking them. Because, I mean, it's actually true. They do have to be milked or they'll be in pain. But the only reason they're producing milk is because they had a baby that we took away from them, and you know, so that we could have the milk instead.
Their babies,
we don't know. Like, I never knew that. How could I not know this?
I know. Well, and the babies are just taken away from them, and the boys are put into the veal industry, and so many people. I would never eat veal, not veal, but you can't have veal without dairy, and you can't have dairy without veal.
Veal is a pure byproduct of dairy. We wouldn't have veal if people didn't have to get rid of those dairy calves, the male calves, and just come up with some horrible way to get rid of them, which is turn them into veal.
I know. We actually have some footage. It's nothing too gruesome, actually. There's really gruesome stuff you can find.
It's emotionally gruesome.
Oh, of course it is.
I mean, these cows, they're like the best mothers in the, like, of the animal kingdom. Cows are intensely good mothers. Like, they have a number of different vocalizations, if you know about cows, and almost all of them relate to the relationship between the cow and the calf. Their ways of identifying each other. They're like the icon of the mother.
They bellow when their babies are taken away.
And this happens to them over and over again. In order to keep production up, they have to have a baby every single year.
I was just asked,
so over and over, every year they lose their baby.
I was asked at the Veg Fest, somebody went up to me and said, what do you think is the worst subset of animal agriculture? And I'm torn. It's either the dairy industry or the egg industry, I think, because, you know,
this is a competition made in hell.
Seriously, but it's just, you know, it's mind-boggling. Another thing that's mind-boggling on a completely different level are the delicious alternatives being made available.
You mean the fact that we don't need dairy at all?
Yeah, well, exactly. And so, case in point, we have some photos of just from a health food store nearby of some of the unbelievable dairy alternatives. And it's funny because a lot of times when people are dairy consumers, that's all they have.
Yeah, they
is
say
the cow's milk.
They say, "Can we get some milk?"
Yeah.
What we say is, "What kind of milk do
we
want?
Oat or almonds or coconut or flax or quinoa,
maybe the coconut
or cashew or maybe the quinoa oat." And I have some coffee here thanks to the Hungry Ghost Cafe, and we have coconut milk creamer. Now this is amazing. I like my, do you want some?
Yeah.
I like my coffee like on the light side, as I know you do as well. And I mean, this is just one example, but what I'm particularly excited about, in addition to this, is the cheese that's available everywhere. I mean, before we left, we had a cheese sandwich for lunch.
All right, it's everywhere, but now it's in Williamsburg, most of all.
This is Dr. Cow.
I can't believe they opened an entire storefront selling
this
Dr.
is
Cow.
The vegan creme de la creme, the soy creme de la creme,
or in this case, the very first non-dairy cheese I ever had.
This is one of these is made out of cashews and one is made out of macadamia nuts. And this one is supposed to be like, is it supposed to be like blue cheese?
Is that for me? Yeah, that's
for
kind
you.
of it's a blue-green algae, but it's like a blue cheese.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we're not supposed to both take bites at the same time. I forgot.
I'm sorry. It's
my
so
favorite.
Good.
I can't believe they have a storefront now. It's so exciting. We haven't actually been there.
It's the first one I ever had, and it's still among my favorites. It's just one of the best cheeses in the world.
This has always been my favorite one, and it will remain. I think other companies are very good now too, but I think that Dr. Cow is the best. Why would you eat?
We have to get them on. I mean, why are we just eating their cheese? We want them. I want them here.
Maybe they'll bring us more cheese.
Oh, good idea.
I think they have chocolate there too.
We definitely have. They have all these like cheesy desserts and dairy-ish desserts that are better than dairy.
I think it really opens up your mind when you start to explore the vegan section of the neighborhood and of the menu and of your heart. And speaking of Dr. Cow, we have our first guest today is Jenny Brown.
I can't wait.
I would imagine that Jenny would be a self-described cow aficionado. I'm guessing. I think she would call herself that. She's been an animal advocate since the age of 18, and Jenny has worked as an undercover videographer for several animal advocacy organizations, and because of what she learned, she decided to dedicate her life to helping farmed animals and raising awareness of their plight. After a stint working at Farm Sanctuary in Watkins Glen, New York, she and her husband, Doug Abel, decided to open up a sanctuary of their own.
Jenny, Doug, and the work of Woodstock Farm Animal Sanctuary has been featured in the New York Times, Cosmopolitan, Rolling Stone, New York Magazine, and many other popular media outlets. Jenny's critically acclaimed book, The Lucky Ones, My Passionate Fight for Farm Animals, was released in 2012 and named Book of the Year in the 2012 Veg News Awards.
Yeah, and you're going to love hearing what this fantastic woman has to say, but take a look at this video to find out what they're all about up at Woodstock Farm Animal Sanctuary.
I started Woodstock Farm Animal Sanctuary to help as many individuals as I can. Individual farm animals like Ophelia here and many others that come from abuse, neglect, and abandonment.
Don't you want to just leave right now and head 2 hours north to Woodstock and hug a pig? I do.
Can we?
Oh, can we?
Yeah,
Let's go.
okay.
Well, for now, we have the fabulous Jenny Brown. Welcome to our Hen House, Jenny.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on.
Hugging you is kind of almost as good as hugging a pig, I would say.
I'll
I love her,
substitute. I'll
but-
stand in. I'm totally happy to stand in.
Yeah, well, there's just so many things we want to talk to you about, and we also hope to get to Woodstock Sanctuary with a camera crew at some point.
More than welcome.
But for now, let's paint a picture of what people find when they get to Woodstock Sanctuary.
Well, we are 2 hours north of New York City, located in the beautiful Catskill Mountains.
You can even get there on a bus, right?
Yes, you can take the Adirondack Trailways and it'll drop
That's
you off
great.
right there, which a lot of people do, and come up for the day and just volunteer. We welcome volunteers year-round. There's a lot of poop to scoop, as you can imagine, with over 300 rescued farm animals. But on the weekends when we're open, Saturday and Sunday through the summer, you come. We have a visitor center with snacks, all kind of vegan, yummy stuff. We have people try some tree-lined nut cheese, which is fabulous. We do tours, 3 tours a day. And basically, we bring people around. You have to be on a tour in order to go in with the animals. We take people in with the animals. We introduce them to the incredible individuals that live there, tell their stories, and at the same time talk about how millions, billions of others just like them live and die in today's animal agriculture on large-scale farms, factory farms, and on small farms alike.
What kind of reactions do you, I mean, you must get a lot of people who aren't on board, who don't really know a lot about these issues, who just happen to be in the area. It's a beautiful area.
Yeah.
What kind of reactions do you get?
Well, we intentionally have billboards where there's an animal, there's a person, and it says Woodstock Sanctuary, where animals are friends, not food, because we don't want to give the impression that we're a petting zoo and have sort of a bait and switch feeling with visitors. So I'm very clear when we start out the tour what we're all about and what people will hear, because they're welcome to, they don't have to take a tour, they can walk around and just see the animals in their pastures, pet the animals in the barns through the, the fencing. And so we're very clear about it. And I try to temper what I say based on the age of the people in the tour. So if there's a lot of kids, I don't use words like the male chickens are ground up alive when we're talking about the egg-laying hens and what happens to their brothers.
No, of course, you have to change your messaging for children. It's too awful.
I mean, sanctuaries are magical places. They're places where animals who would have been killed are given a second chance at life. They have dignity there, they have peace and comfort, and I think that people are really blown away when they experience it for themselves. I think it's pretty much impossible to not have a life-altering experience. Do you agree?
I totally agree. And the thing is that these animals behave very differently than they would on farms because they've been treated with kindness. And even animals that have escaped from slaughterhouses or been seized from abuse cases, most of them, after some time, learn to trust again because we're gentle voices. And again, we treat them with compassion. We're all about their quality of life. And so they respond to that. They respond to that affection. And that is what I think really touches the hearts of people because they've never seen them in that environment.
And it must be so amazing to work there and see them come around like that from being so terrified and really not connecting to humans at all and changing into these. I mean, it's a miracle that they can do it. They're much better than I am.
They are superior to us in many ways.
They trust again.
How long does it take?
It varies. We still have a steer named Mike who was rescued a little over a year ago who escaped from a slaughterhouse in New Jersey. And it's really taken him a long time. It's taken him over a year to where he'll sit calmly and let you scratch his ears and scratch his back. If you're in there with him, sometimes he's a little bit more reserved and kind of, head buddy a little bit, playing, protecting, not intentionally, wouldn't hurt you at all. But he took a while to come around. If you watch the footage of him, he was all over the news. You see him being chased through the streets by police officers and the fellow that owned the slaughterhouse, who backs into him in the video footage intentionally to knock him down. So he had some bad experiences, And when you're raised for production, you're seen as a commodity as opposed to a sentient, living, feeling being. And so again, he had no reason to trust people, So we do our best to socialize them and again to acclimate them to a different environment with friends. They have pasture, they get everything they need, yummy food and treats. We call them by name. And because we see them as equals, we see them as here with us and not for us.
They're individuals. They have, that's right, here with us and not for us. They have points of view, and they're each individuals, and just like our dogs and cats are, they each are just bursting with personality. But let's take a step back. I want to talk about this book, The Lucky Ones, My Passionate Fight for Farm Animals, which I love. And I know that it has been described as a memoir with a mission. And I think that this is such a phenomenal book, which you wrote with Gretchen Primack, and it talks about your story, Jenny, because I think a lot of people watching this would see you and rightfully think this is an incredible human being. How does one become Jenny Brown? Well, let's take a step back and look into your childhood a little bit. Let's psychoanalyze you a little bit.
You want to lie in a couch?
If you could just lie right here. Jenny, you have a kind of traumatic story from your childhood, but I think that it really did involve awakening to the plight of others. Talk a little bit about your childhood for us.
Well, you know, I mean, we live in Woodstock, New York, you know, famous for the town, famous for the concert. But, you know, I grew up in a very conservative Southern Baptist household in Louisville, Kentucky. I ate everything that flew and walked and never thought about that. I always said I loved animals, never thought about the ones on my plate, just like everyone else.
Yeah, everyone else.
So I was 10 years old and I developed cancer in my leg. And chemotherapy and other treatments didn't stop the growth of the tumor, so eventually my leg had to be amputated below the knee down when I was 10. And I always say, you know, my leg is nothing compared to the 2 years of chemotherapy, the toxic drugs that run through your system. But at that time, I had finally able to adopt an animal companion, not a pet, that's a nasty word. And her name was Booger, because I was a gross kid. Then shortened to Boogie. And Boogie, I think, was the catalyst for my...
So to speak.
Yes, and for my realizing that she had a broad range of emotions, that she was an individual in her own right. And, you know, growing up and having gone to church and we have a soul, I really started realizing, well, if we have souls, Boogie has a soul. Yeah. And it wasn't until, you know, I mean, I was a rebellious teen trying to prove myself I'm like everyone else. And I think it made me tougher. And it wasn't until I started college that I picked up some literature, literally during college orientation week, and read about how animals are treated in medical experiments and cosmetic testing. Never thought about the circus that I love to go to, rodeos, animal exploitation, animals used for fur.
Because we're just told these things and we accept them as normal. We just trust whoever says, yes, this is okay, and we don't question whether or not that's true.
Exactly, because we're so disconnected from how these animals would normally live when we're growing up. And again, it's our earliest indoctrinations that, you know, basically put the blinders on us in terms of relating to these animals. And, you know, we relate to our cats and dogs, and unless you grew up on a farm, you really don't know the personalities of farm animals. And even then, you try to distance yourself from even thinking about their personalities or even the fact that they can suffer.
Right.
So for me, it was, you know, reading about it, slowly moving into how we treat the animals we eat, taking a public speaking course, and eventually doing some undercover video for PETA in the early 90s because I graduated with a film degree and actually went on to work for a decade in film and television as an associate producer, production coordinator, myriad of positions, working my way up to producing and directing shows for like Discovery Channel.
Wow.
And so, but it wasn't until I went undercover again after 8 years and was sent to Texas to document downed animals. So I visited a number of stockyards and basically saw the worst of humankind and saw animals suffering in pens, animals that were callously treated, hog-tied, calves desperately suckling, wanting to suckle on your fingers, calves taken away from their mothers. And I just realized, you know, to show any empathy for these animals in this setting with a purse that actually had an undercover video camera, because even though stockyards, auctions are open to the public, big signs that say no photography, no video.
Of course.
To, you know, so I sort of infiltrated this world with my overalls and really worked up my Southern
Infiltrating
accent.
with your overalls.
And,
the Southern accent, yeah, that helps.
Yeah, and so it was that week that made me realize that, you know, I'd always been an animal rights person, activist, always went to the protests and took part in whatever way that I could, but it made me realize that my focus, my activism, I wanted to focus on food production animals because They have it the worst.
They have it the worst, and
And
there's
by
just
the
so
numbers.
many of them.
Exactly.
And I know that you've also have some animals that have also gone through amputations of their legs.
Well, that's
An
true.
interesting synchronicity.
Exactly.
Which has also, I think, helped to pen this book, because there was a phenomenal article in the New York Times about it. I remember the photograph of it. So you have some animals who are dealing with similar issues in their own animal way?
Yes, we have. Well, I recently adopted a little dog from Puerto Rico who's missing her back leg. We have a goat named Albie that had been hogtied and broke free somehow and was running around Prospect Park. We have a little sheep named Felix who was being raised at a large sheep operation for meat and for fiber, and somehow overnight his leg went missing and actually had a bone protruding from his leg. They don't know if a predator had gotten in. Sorry for the graphic description. But thankfully, a woman that was there, he was just going to go with others to the next auction. And a woman that worked there saved his life. So
Like it would never occur to people to save the life of a farm animal who's injured. I mean, the idea is just they're going to die
Because they're
anyway.
a commodity.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what Woodstock
and to
Farm
create
Animal
a prosthetic.
That's what Woodstock Farm Animal Sanctuary is really changing the world by doing, is to say, no, you're not a commodity. These are individuals.
You know what I love about your story too is that it kind of has it all. It's that emotional connection to a companion animal, which is how so many people, I think, get started thinking about animals.
Yeah.
And then the fact that you started because you read a leaflet.
I know.
Like, the power of activism, simple activism.
I know, and people give PETA so much grief, but a lot of people are animal rights activists and aware.
Because they're out there.
Because of PETA, and that was me in 1989. You know, before they became.
You were
as
like, what, one
controversial.
then? You were early. But
I was 18.
Now, you mentioned you had a goat who was from Prospect Park. You have a number of animals from right here in Brooklyn, isn't that right?
It's true, because a lot of folks don't realize that in the 5 boroughs there are close to 100 storefront slaughterhouses.
Unbelievable.
That you might even
100.
walk down the street and never even realize that that's what lurks, you know, behind the door. Might say live poultry, halal markets, and you might see a few chickens in the window, but you go into these places and often there's turkeys, there's ducks, there's lambs, there's little goats, and sometimes there's calves. And when there's an opportunity, they escape, because these aren't major operations with trucks driving in and fencing, you know, big enclosures. They drive into the back where you can't see them being unloaded. When there's an opportunity to escape, they do.
You know, it just shows, because they're not these high security facilities that major slaughterhouses are, that, you know, we're in the middle of nowhere, that animals can't escape from. When animals can get out, they'll take that chance.
Oh, yeah.
They will.
They're not dumb.
Right.
You know,
No,
they absolutely do.
I have a question, Jenny. We're running out of time, and I know that you see a lot in your career and in your life, and you've seen a lot for a long time, and yet you're smiling. You're still smiling, and I want to know why. I want to know what gives you hope.
What gives me hope is people like you guys.
Oh.
People like my friend Gretchen, who's coming on next, who writes beautiful poetry and cooks delicious meals. It's our community. And I know that I'm not alone, and I'm not alienated in feeling the way that I feel about animals. And there's a growing awareness of how animals are treated in factory farms. Lots of press over it. Lots of fabulous new vegan foods that are, you know, growing in popularity. So if I wasn't hopeful, I think I would be in a padded cell, first of all. So I just need to do my part in changing the way the world views farm animals, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
She gives me hope.
Yeah, she gets me a little verklempt, but then after the verklemptness is over, you give me hope. You really do, and I think, like I said, that visiting Woodstock Farm Animal Sanctuary is an absolute must-have day trip or longer weekend trip for people, or volunteer trip.
You have a bed and breakfast,
Absolutely.
isn't that right?
We have a bed and breakfast. Of course, it's
Great.
a vegan bed and
Of course.
breakfast. And our B&B caretaker makes fabulous food. And it overlooks right from the front porch. It overlooks the entire sanctuary, you know, so you can see peaceful animals running in the field, and then you can eat a meal that doesn't have animals. So.
Woodstock Sanctuary is a place not only where animals could really get a jolt of hope and jolts of dignity, but where I think a lot of people who are kind of brought down by the stress of living here in New York with the kind of hustle and bustle, and just people who work for the greater good of humanity or of animal kind can just recharge themselves. So I hope that people visit Woodstock Farm Animal Sanctuary. And Jenny, we can't thank you enough for joining us today in our hen house. We are such big fans, and I hope that people who are watching this, who are obviously falling in love with you, go to ourhenhouse.org and listen to your podcast interview. I think you've had 2, because we've had like 240 something episodes now, and yours is our favorite interview.
Oh, she cries.
I know.
I can't help it.
She has animals. She's verklempt. She's a beautiful writer and activist. So if you just go there and check that out. And to learn more about Jenny Brown and the Woodstock Farm Animal Sanctuary, which she runs with her incredible husband, Doug Abel, be sure to pick up a copy of The Lucky Ones, and also visit Woodstock online at woodstocksanctuary.org, or follow your instincts and just hop on a bus for a real live visit. I have no doubt that it will change your life. It's changed mine over and over again.
It will definitely change people's lives. There's no doubt about it. Up next for us today in our hen house is the equally inspiring Gretchen Primack. Gretchen is a poet and teacher and is the author of 2 poetry collections, Kind and Doris's Red Spaces. She is also the co-author with Jenny Brown of The Lucky Ones. And Gretchen is not only a passionate advocate for animals, but has a rich history of being a union organizer, a working women's advocate, a professor for a college program in a maximum security men's prison. She's really done it all.
And she's also done the Brooklyn thing. I think she's a passionate person when it comes to Brooklyn. She talks about her Brooklyn days all the time. And I'm definitely sensing a theme today of women who will change your life. Gretchen is also a talented vegan cook, and I'm happy to say we'll be sharing some of that particular talent with us today. But before she joins us, please take a look at this short video that we came across recently. Oh my God, this video will touch you and move you. It's,
oh my God.
It's not actually about farm animals, but
and it's not gruesome.
No, don't turn the channel. This is amazing. I think it will give you an idea of just how deep the relationship between an animal and a human can be.
Something. You got something, huh? Yeah, that's too bad. I'll take you, and you take me.
That is so heartbreaking. Oh, it's also very heartwarming, of course, but it's so heartbreaking. And that video really is the perfect lead-in to our next guest, Gretchen Primack, because her poetry is also both very heartbreaking and heartwarming. Welcome to our hen house, Gretchen.
So glad to be here with you ladies.
We are longtime fans of everything you do, and I have to say, most poetry annoys me. I admit it. Yours, however, I find a lot of inspiration in. I find it validating, and I find it enlightening, and it moves me, and it touches me, and I'm just so grateful to you that you're bringing the animals into your work, because I think the reason a lot of poetry annoys me is because it's very often self-involved. Is that just a generalization?
No, that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
A lot of it is.
Yeah.
And, you know, poets are also annoyed with a lot of poetry, so it isn't enlightened.
Does it make me, so is what I just said kind of deep?
Extremely deep.
Excellent.
I actually need to take a minute. Right?
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay. We can play that video again if you want. But anyway, let's talk about your poetry book, Kind. Tell us about the vision for this book.
Well, as a lot of poetry projects and a lot of poets will tell you, it wasn't formed straight out of the gate. it took some time. I started to write one and then another poem, sort of addressing the lack of concern that I have felt around me, even among very progressive, left-leaning, caring, compassionate people.
Yes.
And that, in a way, is the most disappointing for me. People who are able to see that there are injustices, people who are able to think outside of certain boxes, but aren't willing to go outside of other boxes.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I think that's something that really breaks all of our hearts all the time, that it's the people who we admire the most sometimes who aren't seeing this issue. So how do you bring that into poetry? How does animal advocacy inform your poetry?
Well, I started with a poetry base. I had already published a chapbook and had been working for many years and had a master's degree and all of that. And in a way that made it easier to bring this subject matter in, because it was already like I didn't have to think as much about the craft of poetry and some of the stylistic concerns that you think about at the beginning. I could just meld those two worlds in a bit of a more natural way. And it felt like maybe an obvious step, right? These two parts of my life that are so important to me and so dominant in my life would merge. But actually, I think there's a lot of fear that political poetry or message poetry fails.
It gets pedantic sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, it sure does.
Yeah.
It sure does.
But
yeah.
yours doesn't at all. So did you were a poet first and then you were an animal advocate?
Well, I would say that yes, actually.
Okay.
I was, vegetarian from age 13. So in that sense, you could say that I was an animal advocate before I was meaningfully a poet, because my poems were really, really terrible for a long time. But in terms of real advocacy, really understanding what's going on, moving from vegetarian to vegan, and that I had been doing poetry for a while before that got me in my mid-30s.
Okay, well, I mean, what I think is particularly interesting is that you use your skill and your talent as a poet to really bring these issues to life, and I'd love it if you would read us one of your poems from Kind.
Well, I sure will, and we've been talking and thinking about the relationship between mother cows and baby cows, and this really sick system we have, industry that is based on the tearing apart of a mother and child. If we thought about that for even a minute, boy,
Right.
So I really was compelled to write about that. And one of the first poems that I wrote for this book is a poem called Love This. Folks in TV land can't see that there are very beautiful drawings throughout this book. They are the work of the magnificent artist Susan Siegel, who also painted the cover. So it's really a conversation between an artist and a poet. I couldn't be happier.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. I love this poem.
So it starts with an epigraph, which is a poetic fancy way of saying a quote from the poet Stanley Kunitz, who's a wonderful poet. In one of his poems, he says, "If you permit this evil, what is the good of your life?" The body floods with chemicals saying, "Love this." And she does, and births it. It is a boy she begins to clean and nose, but he is dragged away by his back feet. She will never touch him again, though she hears him howl and calls back for days. Her breast milk is banked for others. Her son is pulled away to lie in his box. He will be packed for slaughter. How ingenious we are to make product from byproduct, make use of the child, kill and pack and truck him to plates. And when her gallons slow, we start over. And her body says, "Love this." And she does, though in a moment she will never touch him again. His milk is not for him. And when the milk slows too slow, she will join him on the line, pounds of ground, and how we will dine and talk of our glossy dogs. Her body will break up on our forks as mothers beg us for the grain we stuffed her with. And children beg us for the water scouring her blood from the factory walls. And when her wastes and gases and panic heat our air so hot, our world stops breathing. Then will we stop? Then will we grow kind and let the air cool and mothers breathe?
There's so much in there. There's just so much in there. I mean, one of the amazing things about what you do is you take these issues that are too hard for people to understand. And we were talking before how, like, people don't even understand that cows have baby. We're all told, oh, right. They would die if we didn't milk them.
Right.
But they don't understand that they had to have a baby in order to produce that milk. I mean, none of us do.
No, I didn't.
You've got so much information in that poem. I love the fact, you know, one of the things that our Hen House is all about, and that I think the animal rights movement is all about, is each person taking. You said you were a poet before you were an animal rights advocate, or at least they were interweaving before you put them together. And it's so important that we all put them together, what we can do well. I'm so glad you did.
Yeah, and another thing that our movement is all about is trying delicious food. And I know that with the theme of cows and liberating them, not oppressing them, in mind, you brought us some of your amazing food. Now, I have to say, when Marianne and I got married, Gretchen made us our wedding cake.
That was a hell of a cake.
That was a hell of a cake. And so what did you bring for us?
And it had cherries.
It's because you love cherries.
Because we love cherries so much.
Yeah, exactly.
And chocolate, because we love chocolate so much.
And we love you, and you're cooking, and you're baking so much. So let's talk about some of these foods, and how do they pertain to cows?
Sure. Well, so the theme of these foods is cream without cruel. Okay? We love creaminess.
Yes.
You know, we are designed to love creaminess as babies, and then we're designed to love fat as humans. It's an evolutionary biological reality, right? I love creaminess as much as anyone else. I just don't want to have a mother, gestate a baby for 9 months and then have it turn away so that I can taste cream.
Yeah.
Because that makes no sense to me, and I'm so done with that part of my life, and I'm so glad. So I get the absolute exact same taste of creaminess without cruelty, without cholesterol, by
cream without cruelty or cholesterol.
Yeah. With this magic product, which is cashew cream. So all of these dishes involve cashew cream, and it could not be easier. I just want people to see how thin.
Oh, look at that.
This is. So it's basically a heavy cream. And
it's amazing. You can make heavy cream without the oppression or the.
Who knew that cashews were such a miracle?
Whoever figured this out,
it's a miracle.
I worship you. I will leave my beloved husband
and go
and he knows
found a cashew farm. Get very, very rich.
Yeah, it is very rich.
Was the cashew cream responsible for this?
Exactly.
Okay.
So the idea is that whenever you want to make something creamier and
sweetie,
more rich and exciting,
that's mine.
Excuse you. Then you add cashew cream.
Okay.
So this is a tomato bisque. You've got tomato soup, and tomato soup's fine. But if you want to bring tomato soup from fine to magnificent, then you add cashew cream. If you wanted to make a pasta sauce...
Oh my God, stop talking.
Come on.
This is insane. This is absolutely insane.
Oh. Thanks, guys.
I need a moment. Okay, go on.
All right. You could have a pasta sauce and a red sauce and add cashew cream and make it a rich pink sauce. Or you could make an Alfredo with this. You could pour it over pancakes and waffles. You could put it in just a can of vegetable soup that's been sitting in your pantry for so long. You say, oh, that. Put a little cashew cream in there, maybe crumble a little thyme on top.
In other words,
ambrosia.
You should put cashew cream in absolutely everything you eat.
That's my point. Thank you for getting.
I have a two-parter question. Watch how this brings around your food and your poetry. What inspires you to make food like this? Is it like a flash of inspiration? And part B, is that kind of the same thing that inspires your poetry? Go while I eat.
Well, I've always been insanely food nerdy. And I remember when I first realized that I had to go vegan in order to wake up in the morning and feel like the person that I am, being nervous because I'm such a cook and such a baker. And I was so used to using animal food in my food.
Everyone is.
And So I just applied it, and I got so excited. My food started to taste much better because it wasn't like, oh, well, just throw some cheese on it. You know, I mean, you really had to think.
Right.
And
It's
thinking
fun,
was
isn't
fun.
it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
thinking was fun for me. This recipe is adapted from one by Tal Ronan, celebrity chef Tal Ronan, who really is a genius, from his book, The Conscious Cook.
Yep.
And he is a big proponent of cashew cream,
Yeah,
and got me
okay.
very excited about
Well,
it.
I know that we don't have a whole lot of time left,
I
so
need to stop.
Yes, stop.
Yeah, you can have
I
a little
want
more
to
later.
see what else you have, and then I want to have time for you to read another poem for us.
Okay.
So,
well,
but I also want to know what inspires your poetry. So tell me what inspires your poetry while I'm eating this.
Yeah, like a specific poem. Like, what is your creative process? Does it come to you just like in a flash, or is it like you decide I want to write about dairy cows, and then you sit down and you like work your way through how to make that beautiful? Or harrowing?
It's a bit of a combination. I couldn't sit down with a pen and say, okay, dairy cows, go. But I could have dairy cows on the brain and think about it and walk through the woods with my dogs and just go about my business and lie in bed and have like the poetic eye facing a dairy cow. And eventually it'll come. And in fact, I was just commissioned by a magazine to write a poem about, well, you know what? I'm going to be quiet about it because it's not out yet.
Okay, but I'm assuming it has to do with the animals.
Yes.
Now, after you're finished writing the poem.
Can I just say something before we go on?
That's the best thing you've ever eaten.
God!
What is it?
Oh my God!
Okay. So with this, I made a thicker cashew cream, and I made a dip that it's got sun-dried tomatoes and scallions and herbs. You could also put, some onion and capers in there and make, that kind of dip. You could just do a bunch of fresh herbs. You cracking yourself up, girl? You could put garlic, make a garlic and herb dip. This is so versatile.
Okay.
You can also do a sandwich spread with this.
This is outrageous.
I said before, I have to stop eating so much on the TV show.
You did say that.
Because all I do is eat.
It's not going to happen.
But not this week.
I want to hear another poem, and then I want to have dessert. What else do you have for us to read?
Well, how much time do you think
I
we'll
think we
have?
probably only have time for one more since we are eating do you want to cheer us up a little bit?
I think I'm going to cheer you up a little bit.
I mean, this food is definitely cheering me up, but since they can't taste it.
Well, this book is really about all kinds of animals, our dynamics with all kinds of animals. There's a circus elephant who talks in here. There's a cat that I talk about in here. My husband is an animal. I've got some love poems in here. And then I also wanted to talk about plants. And there are actually several poems that talk about plants, but this one is about eating plants and the joy of that. Because, people say, oh, you're vegan, like you're so restricted, what do you eat? And I said, it's kind of the same feeling as like feeling restricted because you don't eat dogs, or restricted because you don't eat tarantulas, or giraffe milk.
Or each other.
Yeah,
right.
I don't, it's okay with me that we're not going to dine on each other's bodies.
It's all right.
It's all right.
It's good.
And it's okay with me to not eat animal things. And the more you know about it, the less you want to eat them, and the better you feel, and all
The
that.
more you find out there's so many other good things to eat.
There's cashews.
I mean, as long as there's cashews,
We're good.
We're good.
So this is a poem called Restriction. So this is restriction. This pack of tastes, the crisp and the dissolving, the bowl of comfort and bowl of brace, mashed and crunched, split and whole. Zippers of wheat, bursting mango, the tiny skin peeling from a bean, 100 plump grains and 100 plump nuts, the seeds, the geneses of tall green stretches and fat green leaves. That is what becomes my mouth and body and my heart, and it is my joy, and it is plenty.
That is beautiful.
And it's so true.
And you with those two poems, you covered both ends of the spectrum. Mm-hmm, this is what's happening to animals, and it's awful, but this is what's available to us, and it's so wonderful.
And what have we for dessert today?
Yeah, so I eat plants,
Moving on
but
to-
sometimes the plants are in the form of brownie fruit parfaits.
Yes, they are.
Look at this.
Wait,
so
can I just have the camera on me real quick? Restriction.
Yeah.
Go on.
I heard that. So over here, I made a very thick cashew cream, and I made it savory. Mm-hmm. But here, I made a thick cashew cream, and I made it sweet. I put a little vanilla in there, and I put a little maple syrup in there. And then I took a brownie.
Ooh, it's at the bottom.
Because you gotta just go overboard. sometimes.
Yes, we do.
Overboard is a very positive thing
Well, if
on
it's a
many
dessert.
occasions.
Dessert.
So there's brownies and then cream,
Bob.
blueberries, cream, raspberries, cream, and then just a little brownie on top.
This is phenomenal,
yeah.
Gretchen.
Is
This
that-
is so
amazing.
good.
I don't know if I believe you.
And it's very healthy.
Yeah.
It has berries in it.
Oh my God.
As she digs to the bottom to get her brownie.
Just put berries in anything,
Right.
and it will become healthy, right? Exactly.
And this is also very versatile. You take the cream, you could do different kinds of fruit. You could just do bananas and cream and have a sort of banana. You could do bananas cream with vegan graham crackers or ginger snaps in between and have a sort of banana cream pie. All of these dishes, what I want to emphasize is how versatile they are. You put cashew cream in anything. You put veggies in here. You put any fruits or cookies or anything in here. You
Yeah,
could go
I'm
with,
kind of amazed that all of these three dishes are all based on the same food.
Yes.
and you're also
They're so different.
And they're so
and such
creamy.
different
If
flavors.
you gave any of these to someone who eats dairy and you said, okay, here, this is a creamy tomato soup, this is a cheese, they would think that it's dairy. So
Right.
if you can have
Yeah.
exactly the same thing, and it's healthier for you and the planet, and it doesn't
I think it's
involve cruelty,
arguably better.
what is,
Oh my
But,
God.
I mean, I won't go there
Yeah.
because people get into arguments, but I actually
so
think
much
it's better.
Are you kidding? And then at
It's
the
so
same time,
rich.
can I just say this? You're also just opening people's hearts and changing the world through your poetry, Gretchen. And I know you're also the co-author of The Lucky Ones, along with the fabulous Jenny Brown. I'm sure that was quite an inspiring project for you to work on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a great book, and you've got it all. And what I think is so awesome too is that you're not a trained cook. You just are an incredible hobbyist at this, and when this inspires me because I know that.
Are you going to make this every night, sweetie?
Not even at all, but it inspires me to ask you to move in with us. So
Cashew
on that-
cream, even for the absolute layperson, you stick some cashews in some water to soak them overnight, and then you put them in a blender with some different water, and you have cashew cream. Anybody can handle that, even
crazy.
Jasmine Singer.
Oh,
Am I right?
I think you probably are.
All right.
I think you probably are. And there's just so many poems in this book that are so beautiful, and the book is called Kind. And Gretchen, thank you so much for joining us today in our Hen House. We so admire the creative and delicious ways that you truly are changing the world for animals, both of the human and non-human variety. And to learn more about Gretchen and to find Kind and her other books, visit GretchenPrimack.com. And thank you so much to all of you for joining us in our Hen House today. We really loved today's show, especially the dessert, and we are in true awe of our phenomenal guests. It's changed the world with Fabulous Women Day. They give me hope that the world is a better and more delicious place than I sometimes think it is, I admit.
Absolutely. I feel this exactly the same way. And that's it from us hens today. Thank you
Neat.
so much for joining us here at our Hen House. Remember, you can find our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, and on the Our Hen House online magazine, which you can find at ourhenhouse.org. And we look forward to seeing you with a brand new show next week. I hope the food is as good next
No
week.
kidding. Tough shoes to fill.
This is just
cheers,
unbelievable.
women. Cheers. Clink, clink. Drink up. This is amazing, Gretchen. Thank you so much.
These berries are so
Our hen house is a squawking house. Our hen house is their hen house. Our hen house. Ooh, it's a funky fresh house. Our hen house is your hen house.